Hey. Hashtag Born to Dare is what we see on the screen right now looking at Tudor's website. This entire show of Spending Time is going to be about Tudor watches. We're going to focus on the modern Tudor watch brand. David and I have had experiences with Tudor as a brand for several years now, and it's a popular watch in a lot of ways. The last experience I had with the Tudor was just a few days ago. I was on a flight, and this was across the country going back to Los Angeles. And at the end of the flight, we stand up. Everyone's ready to get off the flight, and the guy behind me is wearing a Black Bay, and he asked me. I remember noticing at the exact moment he asked me, he was like, "Are you Ariel Adams of aBlogtoWatch?" And
Ooh.
yeah, I mean, this happens. The point wasn't just to say like I was recognized, but here's someone who was in the entertainment industry, was a writer. Maybe they're listening. I don't know. And I overheard some of their conversation actually during the flight, and I was thinking like, oh wow, that guy has a really interesting job because they write on like television shows, and turns out he knows who I am and knows aBlogtoWatch, and the watch he's wearing is the Tudor Black Bay on the bracelet, just a sort of standard black dial, and it looked pretty good. And so I remember thinking to myself, for all I say about Tudor, the good and the bad, and there is both, this is proven to be a remarkably desirable product for a certain type of guy that wants to get a nice watch, doesn't want to spend a crazy amount. And for that, I think they've done a great job. I do take issue with some things they do, especially their marketing. I think that it's totally off base. They are selling a conservative product with a marketing slogan that says "Take risks." That's kind of weird, don't you think, David?
Yeah, no, I agree. We'll talk about the marketing, but let's start, where we should with, like a little bit of Tudor history and how things worked out for them in recent years and why we are even talking about them. Because if you think about it, 5, maybe like 6, 7 years ago, we would not have been talking about Tudor. Am I right in saying that?
Um, yeah. So let's say the big thing. Tudor is owned by Rolex. And that's something that they have gone back and forth about how they wanted to talk about it, which has been really weird. First, it was like, of course we're related to Rolex. Then it's like, oh, we don't need Rolex. Then it's like, well, Rolex and I aren't better or worse than one another. We're just sort of like equal siblings. And they can't really figure out the way they want to talk about it. A lot of Tudor components are produced right next to Rolex components, and I think that if you are a watch buyer, the appeal is a lot of what you get in a Rolex, but not at Rolex prices. Would you agree?
Mm. Yeah, I would. Yeah, my confusion comes from the fact that, for example, like up until this year, even last year, it was all about no, 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 don't mention Rolex, no, 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 no comparisons, no, nothing. And then this year, they come out with this, the GMT, at the same time, exact same time when Rolex came out with theirs. And that's the most blatant way of telling everyone because it raises a flag even in the minds of those who are not aware of Tudor and Rolex being related in some way. That hey, is that like a Rolex knockoff? And then people would ask, and then the answer would be, oh, of course it isn't. Tudor is owned by Rolex, and then this is the way, like how you
You
can.
can't knock off who you are.
Yeah, exactly. So this is them saying, oh, we are Rolex now, baby Rolex or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah. So Tudor has never, during our time in the watch industry, ever seemed to have a very comfortable relationship with Rolex. I think the reality is that both of them are owned by the same nonprofit organization, or foundation, or board, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Um, and Tudor has always been a lower priced product. In fact,
Mm.
it's very difficult to even get to Rolex prices in Tudor. I think it maxes out for the most part of the models I know about 5,000, 6,000 bucks, maybe a little bit more for the gold ones. I don't know, but it is a more entry level product. And
Yeah.
for a long time, Tudor literally had like the poor man's version of blank. The Tudor Submariners looked exactly the same. Like
Yeah,
exactly
and
the
they
same.
were, and ages ago they were actually called Submariners, which is the most hilarious thing
Yeah.
ever. They
Um,
said Submariner. That's
Now,
funny.
when I got into watches, Tudor was absent from the United States and also, as I understand, the UK. Did you always have Tudor where you grew up?
We never had Tudor.
You never had to. And you
No,
still don't.
and we still don't. Genuinely.
Tudor has not hit Budapest yet. So it was what year was it? It was 2009 maybe when Tudor was announcing its triumphant return to
Was
America
it?
and the UK.
Really? Oh nine.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe a little bit later, but I guess you're right. Maybe it was oh nine.
It wasn't because I remember I didn't even know about Tudor until I started traveling. Like I was into watches for years, never heard about Tudor at all. And apparently um
It's 2013. Sorry to interrupt. It was 13, not oh 09. It was 2013.
really, okay, so that's what
Yeah.
would happen. We would go to Basel World and we would see these Tudor watches, and this was around the time a few years before that Tudor kind of like redid itself, like
Yeah.
had this new kind of like vintagey look. And that was actually because of a guy named Davide Serrato who came from Panerai and then went to Mont Blanc. We always had an interesting relationship with Davide. Um, do you now sort of go, after he left, you see that this being sort of a body of Davide work?
Not anymore. Not anymore, to be honest. The whole Lady Gaga thing, I doubt he has anything to do with
No, no,
that.
no. I'm talking just product.
And the for example, the Black Bay Chrono, I would like to think it doesn't have anything to do with that either. So
Clearly David's favorite watch. Look, both you and I have Tudor watches we really, really appreciate.
yes.
I'll tell you the ones that I really like. I like the Pelagos a lot. I think the Pelagos is a fantastic product.
Yeah.
There's different versions of the Pelagos. There's not that many versions. Like you choose the one that you like. But I think as a modern dive watch, it's a 42 millimeter titanium. Remember that Rolex doesn't make any titanium watches. There's the case
For
back of the
now.
deep sea. Yeah, for now. But it's like it's the titanium Rolex watch. It's
Yeah.
probably my favorite watch that Tudor makes, and the one that I think is probably their finest work. It combines their history, it's modern at the same time. It's a great product. But then they have products like the Style. I remember reviewing a version of the Style a few years ago. You couldn't read the time. I remember thinking to myself, like the deployment buckle is my favorite thing here, and that's not a good thing.
Jesus. Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
What's
Look at
your
this.
favorite Tudor?
Well, my favorite. Uh, to be honest, I like the original Black Bay Black that came out. That had the smiling text on it, not this horizontal thing. It just looked better. That was with the ETM movement. So these now with the in-house they have the perfectly horizontal text. I'm not so much a fan of these. I really genuinely like the hold on one second. This is how old this product is. The Heritage Chrono. So this line, this has not been refreshed in like years and years and years, and this I think is one of the best looking chrono out there. For you can get these at a really good price, like 3.5 grand, maybe 4 grand. You can pick these up online.
So what are we talking
So
about?
this one you can see here. It's the Heritage Chrono, not to be confused with the Black Bay Chrono.
Oh, this one. Yeah, I reviewed this one with the
Yeah,
blue dial.
yeah, yeah. These are pretty sweet.
Do they still make this product?
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting about Tudor is we always kind of were able to differentiate it from Rolex by saying, okay, Rolex uses in-house movements and Tudor uses sourced movements like
Mm-hmm.
ETA. And then Tudor had to confuse everyone by doing what? By coming out with in-house movements and then sourcing movements but not from ETA.
That's a lot of room for confusion right there.
That's actually what you're looking at. That's the old version.
I know.
Oh.
That's why I'm looking at it. I just wanted to compare. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a lot of room for confusion there.
So one of the things that we've seen in modern Tudor is, at least from our perspective, this very strange constant lack of consistency despite an effort to look so freaking consistent.
Hmm.
On paper, this movement is great, the in-house made one. Honestly, I don't care. I never cared when it had an ETA, and when it has an in-house one, does it make it a little bit better? I don't know. I feel like it makes it a little bit more exotic than utilitarian. And I love an ETA movement isn't special for me, but I don't worry about it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to break. But I have an in-house move. I'm like, oh, this is untested. I don't know what's going to happen
Hmm.
here.
What I like about it is that it has 70-hour power reserve, which is actually basically the same as the most modern Rolex movements these days. So
Basically,
you
if
can,
anything, human or otherwise,
yeah,
has a 70-hour power reserve, David will like them.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's true. Anything with 70 hours is good.
So you were scrolling down there, and we saw the spring-loaded deployment clasp of the Pelagos.
Mm,
There's technology that is used here that was sort of developed, by the group Rolex, whatever, and it was sort of known that Tudor would be this experimentation area. It was, that the company couldn't experiment really with Rolex watches, but they experiment a little bit with Tudor. And there was this hope that there would be a lot of experimentation. And we saw a little bit. We saw systems like this. Um, only
so sweet.
only Tudor produces all ceramic cases. You had bronze. But over the last couple of years, I feel like there's been a little bit of a creative deficiency there. We're not the only ones saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that that's a little bit the talk of the town, that the born to dare mentality hasn't been taking too many risks lately?
Yeah, I don't think it's an unfair assessment at all.
It's kind of like Tudor's being run like a small brand and a big brand simultaneously.
So true.
We
That's such a good
we
point.
don't really know who's making decisions there. Um, they still have a lot of product that isn't sold in America, right? So you can see there an ambassador that
Look at
is.
this.
What am I looking at here?
Look at this page. Like the number of references is just
So
insane.
the Black Bay was the most popular thing. Let's talk about this model. I personally, like I said, the Pelagos is probably my more favorite watch, and the Black Bay, I respect it, but I've never really wanted one. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I would just prefer to have the Submariner, but it does come in a significantly lower price. I do believe that the Black Bay is probably a really good entry level watch. I'm not saying it's
Mm.
the only entry level watch, but it is definitely a good entry level watch for a lot of people. We've reviewed various versions. That's the Smiley version that you're
Yep.
talking about. Um, again, I don't know what it is that Tudor missed out on. Again, it's not that I don't think it's a good watch. It's just I, as a consumer, don't feel like I need one compared to other things. Um,
Hmm.
you probably wore the Tudor, the Black Bay, longer
Yeah.
than between us. What was your experience with it? How do you think about it?
Mm. It was very similar to the wearing experience of a Submariner. Sometimes you look at it and you're like, wow, that's a great watch. I'm totally wearing this today and I'm so happy I have this on my wrist today. And then sometimes 1 or 2 weeks just fly by without it ever leaving the shelf. So sometimes it's the most exciting watch. Well, maybe that's not the right word, but maybe sometimes on everyday, like occasions, it's the perfect watch. But sometimes it's just too stale and too boring and too vintagey, and I just pick something else that's more exciting.
What I find
And that's
interesting.
the same thing
Oh, go
for
ahead.
with the Submariner.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the same thing with that.
What I find interesting about the Black Bay is when I see it on people's wrists, um, I recognize that it's one of the first kind of like newer watches that does a very good job of talking to other watch lovers. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of like I am the type of person that will spend money on a nice watch, but no, I don't want to be unreasonable about it. It's like the cheapest way of saying I want a timeless looking watch guy's watch.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that Tudor stumbled on that almost by accident.
Yeah, it just happened. They have not done anything in their communication, at least as far as I can tell, that would cater to this thing
Well, I
happening.
think I think it was, looking back on it. I don't know the time that I gave a lot of credit to Davide, but Davide is, as a designer, was really into sort of vintage military watches, vintage driving watches. There was this sort of core look that he liked, and he sort
Yep,
of imbued this look that he likes onto a bunch of different watches. I think the Black Bay is probably the signature one.
yep,
And that just happened to coincide with an aesthetic trend as well as a price point that made a lot of sense. I don't know that any one factor sort of would have guaranteed success here.
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, the product itself, was this is pre the vintage craze in my mind, at least. The Black Bay came out several years ago, and it's only like the last 2 years that we see this huge uptick in brands doing what they were doing, many years ago. But Tudor, sort of, come to think of it, started it because, of course, you have the Speedmaster, you have the Submariner, and you have other watches that have been around for 50 years or more, but they are not vintage in the sense that they don't look exactly the same as they were looking 50 years ago. They've seen minor improvements here and there, and so and so. But if you look at this with the gilt dial, with the vintage logo and all that, Tudor with the Black Bay has done everything in their power to make this look as close as possible to something that they were doing 50 years ago.
So
And that was new, that was refreshing, and that was like, oh, I'm a guy who likes classic design and just timeless watches, so look at me.
the snowflake hand, as they call it, is sort of the signature Tudor version of Rolex's Mercedes hand.
Hmm.
That's something that I think is one of the sort of aesthetic differences. Is there anything else you can think of which is a kind of Tudor signature look right now, other than this different geometry on the dial?
The this faded gilt look with the yellow paint on it. You won't. I don't think you could ever see a professional Rolex diver watch with this faded vintage patina look on them. Even if they're yellow gold or something like that, it's yellow gold. It's not trying to look something that's been in a drawer for 50 years. It's just gold.
You know what I just realized?
What?
If 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we did a watch what if with the Tudor Black Bay, and we made a GMT version that looks surprisingly like the one
Yeah.
that they came out with. I'm just looking at that right now because I'm looking at the sort of articles that we've written about it in the past. The question I'm asking myself is, interestingly, is the Tudor Black Bay in the future, I'm talking like 15 to 20 years from now, maybe longer, is it going to be a watch that 20-something-year-olds then pick up as like their first nice watch? Is it going to be something that there's going to be enough of them, it's going to have aged well enough, it'll still be relevant? Like, because the actual vintage stuff that it's inspired by, those Tudors, like, those will
Yeah.
be unavailable. No, you won't be able to get any of those, or they'll just be in such bad
Yeah.
shape they'll be way too old. But these have the potential of having an actual interesting future because it's a very trendy watch today, and it could still stay trendy. And it'll be interesting that a watch that's supposed to be inspired by vintage and modern will be considered itself vintage soon, and no one necessarily might know how vintagey the design inspiration
Yeah, that's
originally
true.
came
I
from.
don't think anyone will really care. So, of course, there will
We
be a
will.
few. We will, yeah. Well, us nerds will, but most people won't. They were like, "Oh, this is exactly the watch that came out, 30 years ago in 2015 or something like that." At that point, no one will care what they were doing.
Tudor does have some watches that, like, I don't think you and I have ever spoken one time about wanting to wear. Like, I think their most complicated watch is the Alarm. I've never actually seen one in the real world. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I've never seen anybody wear it in the wild. Did they still make? I think it's called the Officer.
Jesus Christ. No, that's not it. I know what you mean.
I
with
think
the
it's
two
it's got
crowns.
it's got to be there. It's got to be there. It is, the
It's
advisor,
here.
advisor,
Yeah.
officer.
Oh, so condescending.
So this is an alarm watch, a mechanical alarm, which I have to say is about as niche as it gets. It has here a few different functions, and the idea is that you can set an alarm that makes kind of a buzzing noise. There's an on-off for it. There's a power reserve, I believe, for the alarm itself, and then a way to set the alarm. There's an alarm hand. Alarms are a weird complication. They're for what they are, they're relatively inexpensive because nobody really wants them. They're not very pretty because the noise they make sounds like a dying vibrator on your arm. Yeah, exactly.
That's my dying vibrator impression.
That's probably the strangest watch they have. It's fine looking. I don't want it. I don't look at it and be like, oh man, I gotta have one of those. If I was gonna have an alarm, I'd get like one of those weird crickets, by Vulcane.
Yeah.
That would be an
Yeah,
alarm I
those
would
are
try.
pretty freaking cool, but they are more expensive.
For like a pre-owned one, I don't know. what else do we have going on here at Tudor that's just kind of one of the, oh, I remember this video.
Hold on. I just found a little gem here.
No, I remember this when this video came out. They were trying to show the old versus the new.
It's exactly the same.
About to have a Me Too moment over here.
Okay. Okay, so
What's
there's a
going on
watch.
there? That's artistic. That's the most
Let's
creativity I've seen in a
let's-
watch out in a while.
Let's explain what we were seeing for our listeners. Ariel, summarize this
See,
advertisement.
this is
please.
basically a man's fantasy that there's a woman somewhere all dressed up in a dark room fondling a watch, thinking of him.
That's the plot.
That's what's going on here. She's not playing chess, but she's about to apparently.
Okay.
Oh, here
so
he comes.
The guy gets home. The watch is there on the bed with a rose.
A rose. Oh, so she fondled it for a while, and then she gave it to him as a gift, I think.
And then she left.
And then she left him. She's like, "This watch replaces me," and he's like, "What?"
Here's an alarm so you're never late home. I guess.
I think I need to do voiceover for more watch ads.
Actually, that's okay. Okay, that's.
Everyone, we just found an entire new series.
Oh.
Okay, so the Ranger, a nice watch, a good price. I never see them. Again, no marketing of any kind. The Fast Rider Black Shield, that's like one of the chronographs they've had the longest.
It's pretty cool.
It's okay. I wore one. I never really fell in love with it.
I want to like this more than I do. I had a gripe with it. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was reflective or something like that. I think it was.
There's
illegible.
nothing wrong with it. It's like a sidekick watch.
Look at this, for example. This one has these frosted-looking matte. This is not even. This is like some bronze.
It's sandpaper.
indices.
It's just sandpaper.
It actually looks like sandpaper. It's true. On a beige Alcantara strap.
No,
with a black
it makes
case.
it makes
it's
it very
pretty
legible.
dope.
I don't know why those hands.
Yeah.
This is a perfect example of why did they skeletonize the hands? For me, this would have been a much stronger product sans the skeletonization. This is what I call superfluous skeletonization. So we're looking at this kind of, I call it the desert black version of the Fast Rider Black Shield. It has this tan strap and hand. It's actually technically a cool product. Black ceramic case. It's a cool product.
It?
Yes.
Ceramic, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Okay. But it lacks a certain kind of oomph. Maybe it needs a black ceramic matching bracelet.
Yeah.
I wore one of
Jacquard can do that.
those, a very similar one to that I wore.
This is not a good picture.
But that's actually what it looks like. There's something wrong. The black isn't dark enough.
Yeah. It looks gray. Ugh.
But the funny thing is, if you go to the Ranger, they're able to do a nice black background. The North Flag, that was a missed opportunity right there. The North Flag is a sport watch that was too small, not as attractively designed, but a great concept because it was an adventure watch with a power reserve indicator on the dial. And think about it, no Rolex or Tudor other than the North Flag has a power reserve indicator on the dial. Very few sport watches have it. It's a very cool complication. I've seen the North Flag in public. I've seen people wear it. But the Black Bay for sure gets the majority of people wearing it. I'm actually surprised that the Pelagos isn't more popular than it is, at least on the street.
Right. Yeah, this North Flag, it was so close to being great. This is the one that they debuted their manufacturer caliber with, I believe. This was the watch that they're This was it. I'm pretty sure.
And this is the one that has the display case back, which I don't know that the other ones have.
Yeah, that's what reminded me of these being the first in-house ones that they had a display case back.
Yeah, the movement
But it
even
just
looks
looks wrong.
nicer.
But the watch just looks weird.
It does just look weird. That it's a valiant effort. It's a very if they made a power reserve version of the Ranger, that could save it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Tudor marketing because I think that we've talked about the collection enough.
Yes.
Tudor has tried to appeal to a younger demographic, but the problem is like they've tried to be really cheesy. They had this series of videos I remember that was like
Oh my
I don't
God.
even know who was trying to appeal to, but there was like a guy in a pickup truck, and it was very lumberjacky. And then they have, like they have some women's watches, but they have Lady Gaga as an ambassador. Now, Lady Gaga is very popular, and she has a lot of good music. But I've never, not only have I not heard one person who likes watches say that they understood that relationship, I've actively heard people be hostile to it. And I'm asking myself, a brand goes ahead and chooses a personality to be associated with. Would you not want to make sure through, like, I don't know, focus groups or anything like that, that a demographic you sell to isn't alienated by the personalities that you associate with?
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on here.
Okay, you're watching a video, Born to Dare with Lady Gaga. She's wearing a black bay. Don't understand.
Playing the piano. Is she
dueling herself here?
She is dueling herself, and they're both wearing Tudor watches.
Is she gonna shoot a fireball now?
Do you want to buy a watch yet, Ariel?
I mean, I
spend money.
I don't know. Look, I mean, I get it. I'm not the demographic. Born to Dare. It just seems like in the future that's going to be like a stereotype for like a cliche marketing thing that like just shouldn't have happened. Like it's so cliche.
Is this like YOLO?
It's like Tudor is like a class project marketing plan. Like it's so by the book it lacks personality.
I remember there were some of these hilarious videos that now seem to be gone, but I will find them.
There's no comedy allowed here. No comedy at Tudor.
No, it was their own video.
Never.
It was I think this is the biggest cliche ever.
Oh, driving around. Yeah, the Shelby Cobra. Oh, this is so they try. I get it. But for them, this was risque stuff.
Was it?
Yeah, for them, this was like really risque.
Okay.
But you can see a concerted effort that no one in the marketing department had ever worked in watches at all. It's like if they almost tried, they'd be like, "Hey, everyone, this is your first day on the job, yeah? Yeah? Okay, great. Let's get started." You all don't care about watches, right? Okay, great.
So what we're seeing here is a guy driving a boat and a car wearing a watch that they don't communicate about anymore. And there's a lady, and it's just fancy lifestyle. Nothing related to the product or what the product
Ooh, look at that! Enter watch.
There is literally nothing that this watch can do that is showcased.
I liked Watch Your Style better than Born to Dare. At least that had the word watch in it.
Yeah. That's true. I guess that's a good point.
Okay, so would I buy a Tudor watch? Yes, I would spend my own money on a Tudor watch. Have I yet? The closest I've come is one of the Pelagoses, but I just haven't quite got it yet. The LHD was my favorite one. The colors I enjoyed. I enjoyed the placement of the crown on the other side. Oh, you're looking at prices. What does an LHD cost these days? About $4,000.
About $4,000.
About $4,000. Okay, that's under retail, not by too much, but under retail. I don't know what a Pelagos goes for, but that's still probably my top. And maybe someday I will get a Pelagos. It's definitely not out of the question at all. So even though we sit there and we've said not the most flattering things about every element of Tudor, their product is still good, right? They still have access to great parts and machinery. I don't know about the in-house movements. I haven't heard too much about it, but people seem to be okay with them for the most part. So the product experience is good. The price is good. They do a good job at right now offering a timeless design. And in that, they do good. In that, as long as they have that right positioning and they're in the right stores and people know that, their marketing can be as ridiculous as it needs to be. One of the questions I've always had is, does Tudor have a lot of appeal outside of the watch space? right?
That's what they are trying to achieve with Lady freaking Gaga and David Beckham. But the problem is the product itself, I doubt, speaks very loudly to a Lady Gaga fan, does it? Doesn't it?
Well, that's the interesting
Right?
thing because the product is so heavily focused on watch enthusiasts, yet they so desperately want to sell outside of that. And I don't know how well they're doing outside of that. I know they're doing well to a certain type of entry level enthusiast. That may buy a few Tudors over their lifetime, not just Tudor.
Yeah.
It's still very much is in a like buy a Rolex next brand. That's
Mm-hmm.
still very much built into it. Um, I don't know what they're doing right now. It seems like they're a little bit lost. But that's, I mean, again, that's for me speaking as someone who has a high expectation as a watch person. When they started coming out with smaller black bays, um, I don't know. It's not that I got worried, but it was just like, okay, they've run out of good ideas. And we see
Yeah.
that. We see brands have like these periods of 3 to 4 years of good ideas, and then like 10 years go by before they have good ideas again. This happens. Tudor just seems to be in a not a lot of great ideas period.
Unfortunately. But they have our support. So come on Tudor and just bring out some crazy stuff. Not like the ones
So
I'm
scroll
looking at
down here,
right
scroll
now.
down. You're looking at this one they just called the Classic. Now this is sort
And
of
it's
the
not even remotely classic. There's nothing classic about these watches.
so this is their version of the date just. So you still have, and I do not believe are sold in North America, but they have they have their lower cost version of what essentially is the look of a date just or a day date. And these are not bad. Are they
It's
as finely
actually
made?
called the date day.
Yes, it's yeah. So again, this goes back to
Oh
the.
my god.
I know. This is a real thing. So Rolex has the day date, and Tudor has the date day. Can't make this up.
And the problem is they took a date, they sat down with a piece of paper, and they said, okay, we could make the same thing essentially because nothing is technically nothing is stopping us from making a case to look like exactly the same as the Oyster Perpetual case of the date. So let's make it more ugly because it cannot by law look better or the same as a date. So let's make it ugly a little bit. Let's square out the case. The bezel should be just
Okay,
just
Elizabeth.
make it a little bit worse.
The thing that it is, you're right, a little bit worse. I wouldn't call it ugly. I actually put these on. I actually like the case design.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Looking at this is the sort of stuff that
That
I know
that
you
white
like.
dial one is really nice, actually.
Really?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Look at it because the hands I believe are like a dark color. They're like black, so it's very legible. That's like if you're like in your early 20s and you're wearing that, like that's a cool watch.
Yeah.
It's actually a cool watch. But what's interesting is this is one of the few major brands that still has product that is and is not sold in some regions.
Yeah. So strange.
You're getting hot in the date day. The
No.
date day.
It would piss me off every single day when I look at my watch and it says date day on it. I will be like, my life is a disaster. Where has it gone so wrong?
Go to the style now. I want to because they just updated the style.
Ooh.
Do they still have it there? Glamour.
Yeah.
I mean, like people
So
don't
this
know that this brand that they respect so much, like the black but very serious, has collections called Style and Glamour, like it's Calvin Klein or something.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a date just 41 described over the phone. Basically.
That's interesting. Okay, so they still have these dials here with these Delphine hands that, again, the one with the silver dial, it's literally legible.
Yeah, you cannot see anything.
So here we
on
have
the
a
boy.
fluted style bezel. But
That
again,
looks exactly the same
the
as
Rolex
Rolex.
it's
Yeah.
going to be half the price. Do they have the prices here or no?
No.
Of
It's
course,
gonna be half.
of course not.
But the date is just the worst placement ever. You have a full size 3 o'clock index.
Okay, but in defense of Tudor, that watch
Yeah.
isn't sold in America. So I get to
So-
pretend like it doesn't exist.
Okay, well.
But
It has a purple dial. That's pretty cool. There are a few quirky, cool pieces here in this line that I kind of like or at least appreciate. But the placement of the date is just it's just really poor.
I actually almost got you a Tudor one time, but it was in really bad condition.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I didn't want to get it because it was in bad condition. I'm just saying I
Okay.
would have. So that's
If it,
substantially similar to the one I reviewed, just a little bit larger. Illegible.
yeah, yeah. Which one? Hold on. Tudor style you're talking about?
Yeah.
Let me find your review here.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, you are?
I had to do
Oh, I
so many
see.
tricks with photography to make it so you could see the dial. Because
Hmm.
at the time I was like, Tudor, really? Okay, so let's talk about the ones. There's the Black Bay Bronze. And it's really great that they make stuff like that, like the Black Bay Bronze.
Yes.
And they did all this work to make sure that the bronze would patina evenly.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get that type of experience with a lot of the other brands. It's been like, it's bronze. Oh, you wanted more? So once in a while, if you look closely, like Tudor, because of the resources they have, will do something great. You know, honestly, one of the things I think that prevented me from liking the Black Bay more was the fact that it's an aluminum bezel insert as opposed to a ceramic one.
Ceramic.
The Pelagos has a matte ceramic one, which I think is awesome.
Yep.
I don't know that I can go back to aluminum. I just don't know I can do it.
It would look like crap in like 2 weeks, and that's the problem. I mean, we are hard on our watches. I know I am. Sometimes, it's just you cannot really, avoid a scratch here and there, and then it just looks so sad.
How do you think the Black Bay steel, you remember with the kind of the steel bezel, how do you think that's going to
Mm-hmm.
age?
How do I think what?
How do you think it'll age? Like how you think that's going to
Mm.
scratch up more or less than the aluminum?
At least you can polish it up. Colored, when you have colored aluminum, there's nothing you can do about it.
Maybe
When
just
you have the
replace it
standardized aluminum.
or replace it.
Yeah, well, that's not really,
Okay, so
you know.
what came out this year from Tudor? There was just the GMT.
No. Yes.
La-
Kind of, in the
Last year
sense
was
that
the Black Bay chronograph, right?
yeah, yeah. This year there was a bunch of different size black bays. They now come in 32, 36, 41. I believe also. Hold on, Jesus Christ. Hold on. Let me see. I want to see all the black
The
bay
bronze is bigger. It's
sizes.
like 43 or 44.
43, 41, 39, 32, 36. That's all the black bay you have for now.
Okay, so this is something that Rolex learned that I think, well, they sort of learned when they're sport watches that Tudor hasn't seemed to learn. And it's called SKU-itis.
Yes.
Okay? The Black
Squeakies.
Bay makes it difficult for anyone to choose which one to get because there's too many options. There's never been like a bazillion Submariners. I'm not saying there hasn't been a few, but there's never been a bazillion. And there's a bazillion Black Bays. And I know that as a consumer, I don't think I could go in here and be like, what,
That's the one I want.
yeah. I'm like, well, that one's nice, but then last year they came out with that one. So maybe they'll have another one with a gold dial or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they prevent people from making confident purchase decisions because they feel like next year there's going to be something else.
Which there will be because they have to keep making
How
money.
big is this 58? 39?
The
What a
58,
random
that is a
size.
size of 39. And
Why-
they actually, it's not a joke, they had to engineer a new movement to fit into the 2 millimeter smaller case.
So the whole point was that it was a little bit bigger than the Submariner, and then they made one 1 millimeter under. So there's a 39 millimeter Black Bay. Then there's the Submariner, which was 40. And then you have a 41 millimeter Black Bay. Then you have a 42 millimeter Pelagos. Then you have a 43 millimeter bronze one. Then you have a 44 millimeter deep sea. It's like they want there to be something for every conceivable size.
Yep.
I mean,
Which there is.
who's just like sitting around being like, you know what? I really like this one at 40, but at 39, you got me. I need to buy it.
Yep.
Or maybe
This
that's
year
good.
to launch with all this, with all this brouhaha, this 39 millimeter Black Bay. I just honestly don't even understand. And this 58, this weird name, like type it all out. This vintagey, like, did we say this was vintage? This is 39. You're so refined because you're wearing a smaller watch or whatever. I understand that there is a need maybe for a smaller piece or whatever, but to make a new movement and so on, it's just a lot of effort for not much, at least that I can see here.
Okay, so this has been the highs and lows of modern Tudor. To recap, part of the Rolex family, if you will. Definitely some great buys in there and some good products.
Yes.
Values remain fair.
Mm-hmm.
The brand seems to wander a lot. Seems a little bit aimless right now, and we sympathize with you if there appears to be too many options if you like things like the Black Bay. Is it a gateway watch to higher end ones? For sure, for sure. But I think if you get the right one, you can have a watch that you'll wear for a long time. At worst, you have kind of a well-made fashion watch. At
Yeah,
worst.
I think that's a good summary. I want to see a new Heritage Chrono next year because these guys here, I really like these pieces here, but they have not been refreshed since 2013 or something like that. So that would be really cool to see.
I think they're even
these.
older
Maybe
than that.
maybe with the BO1 from Breitling that they are using for the horrid Black Bay Chrono, that would be amazing. So yeah, I'm all for these, but like you say, we are not negating the fact that there's a lot of good purchases here from Tudor. Maybe even a few too many for their own good, but we are in for next year, and we're looking forward to seeing what
And
they bring out.
I advise you to check out an advisor. No, I don't.
Ooh, and the 39.5 millimeter Black Bay next year coming.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of Spending Time.
Thanks so much. Bye.